I know how deeply you, the entire nation, and I think I may say the whole world, sympathize with me in the irreparable loss we've all suffered.
The appointment was meant to be completed before anyone could challenge it. A single signature would place Camilla inside the private structure governing Balmoral, giving her authority over decisions tied to the estate's future, its historic rooms, and the royal legacy preserved behind its gates. But before King Charles could put pen to paper, William entered the room, closed the folder, and delivered a warning that transformed a quiet administrative act into a constitutional family confrontation. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles expected a routine morning briefing at Windsor. Instead, the king found his son standing over the document intended to settle Camilla's position. The Balmoral trusteeship was not honorary. It was permanent guardianship over the estate's historic character, private collections, access, and future use. Whoever held it could influence property, memory, inheritance, and power inside the monarchy. William had discovered what made the appointment dangerous. The nomination had never gone before the Royal Family Council, the internal body reviewing decisions affecting royal interests. The voting page had vanished. The prince saw Camilla's name beneath the appointment clause, felt anger surge, and lowered his voice. If he shouted, the confrontation could be dismissed as resentment. He placed one hand across the signature line and said, "You cannot make this permanent without the council." Charles tightened his grip on the pen. The monarch had expected resistance from courtiers, not defiance from the son who would inherit everything. He stared at William, wounded by the suggestion that his judgment could not be trusted. Then he set the pen down. That movement carried humiliation. The future king was no longer questioning Camilla alone. He was challenging how his father used royal authority. William produced the council packet. A voting page had been included before the papers were revised, and someone had removed it. Charles turned toward the closed door as the meaning settled over him. What had looked like an appointment now carried the shadow of manipulation. Camilla entered expecting confirmation, and stopped at the unsigned document. The queen consort looked from the king to the prince, and asked whether there was a problem. William answered without hesitation. This was not merely a disagreement. A rule was being bypassed. Charles refused to destroy the papers. He ordered the folder sealed until the council could be summoned. Camilla said nothing, but she understood that William knew more than he had revealed. As the sealed folder left the room, the battle shifted from the unsigned document to the three people whose loyalties, fears, and unfinished history had been trapped inside it. For Charles, the appointment was an act of trust. For Camilla, it was proof that she would never again stand outside the family's most guarded spaces. For William, however, Balmoral was not an ordinary estate, and trusteeship was not an ordinary honor. It was where childhood memories, private grief, and the shadow of Diana still lived. One signature threatened to force three conflicting versions of royal loyalty into the same room, and only one could survive unchanged. Charles believed Camilla had earned protection. She had remained beside him through illness, public anger, and the crushing weight of the crown. The proposed trusteeship, a permanent role giving its holder influence over Balmoral's private rooms, collections, access, and future decisions, would make her position harder to weaken when William eventually became king. To the monarch, that authority was not a reward, it was security. William saw something far more dangerous. Balmoral held memories of childhood summers, difficult days after his mother's death, and private conversations that had shaped the man he became. The prince believed the estate belonged to the continuity of the monarchy, not to the emotional needs of one reign. For him, permanent control had to be earned through collective confidence. It could never be granted simply because his father feared what might happen later. Camilla sat alone with the appointment summary resting in her hands. She traced the words "permanent trustee" with one finger, then folded the page closed. Her shock hardened into resentment. William's objection felt personal, because her name was the only name being stopped. She believed he had used procedure to express a rejection he had never been willing to say aloud. Charles entered without aids and found her beside an untouched tea tray. The king told her that his son was challenging the process, not her character. She looked at him and answered that the difference meant little when she was the person being denied. Camilla refused to beg William for permission to serve, and the monarch heard the humiliation beneath her anger. William carried a deeper concern to Catherine in a private conversation at their residence. He showed her a confidential schedule listing changes Camilla intended to propose after receiving the role. The princess read plans involving guest access, private apartments, and the presentation of family collections. Then she stopped at one entry concerning the late Queen's Balmoral correspondence. Catherine asked whether Charles had seen the full schedule. William admitted that he did not know. That uncertainty frightened the future king more than the appointment itself. His father might be defending a decision without understanding everything attached to it. The prince requested the original council packet. Inside an earlier version, he found written concerns from Anne. Someone had removed them before the papers reached Charles. Another senior royal had already tried to stop the appointment, and someone had made certain she failed. To understand why Anne's warning vanished, William had to return to the exact Balmoral incident that first convinced the family Camilla wanted more than a symbolic seat. The confrontation at Windsor did not begin with a missing voting page. It began months earlier, on a rain-heavy evening at Balmoral, when a locked archive was opened after dinner, and a private instruction was given without the knowledge of the estate's guardians. At the time, the incident was dismissed as a misunderstanding. Yet one witness remembered Camilla's exact words. Another remembered Charles's silence, and Anne remembered the moment she realized Balmoral's traditions were being rewritten before anyone had formally agreed to change them. Camilla had remained behind after the Balmoral Autumn Estate Review, an annual meeting where senior royals examined conservation needs, family access, and the protection of private collections. She asked the archive custodian to reopen the late Queen's correspondence room so selected papers could be considered for a historical display. The custodian refused at first. No sealed letters could be reviewed without written approval from 2 trustees. Camilla answered that Charles had already agreed in principle and that the paperwork could follow. The Queen consort did not raise her voice, but the pressure was clear. A senior aide stepped forward and told the custodian that delaying the request would be interpreted as ignoring the king's wishes. Minutes later, the locked door opened. Anne arrived as archival boxes were being moved onto a long table. The Princess Royal stopped and demanded to know who had authorized the review. Camilla replied that Charles had approved it. Then the king entered, and Anne turned toward him without speaking. Her silence forced the question into the open. Charles hesitated. He admitted that he had approved a discussion about the letters, not the removal of sealed material. The monarch's answer changed everything. Camilla closed one box with both hands and told Anne that she was trying to preserve history, not steal it. The princess replied that preservation began with respecting the safeguards established by the late Queen. Charles stood between them, visibly torn. He knew reversing the archive opening would humiliate Camilla in front of staff. He also knew allowing it to continue would weaken rules his mother had defended for decades. The king chose silence, and the boxes remained open that night. Anne later recorded her objection in a formal council memorandum, a written warning preserved for decisions involving royal authority. She stated that Camilla should receive no permanent control over Balmoral until the archive incident had been examined. That memorandum became the missing page William later found. William then uncovered something worse. The aide who pressured the custodian had also prepared the revised appointment papers. The prince now saw one chain linking the opened archive, Anne's vanished warning, and the removed council vote. He asked Anne whether Charles knew her objection had been erased. She looked directly at him and answered, "That is the question you must ask him to his face." Armed with her letter and the original packet, William entered the king's private study, knowing that one of them would leave feeling betrayed. There were no cameras, no council secretaries, and no courtiers positioned to reinterpret what followed. William placed Anne's missing objection on Charles's desk and waited. The king read the first line, then the second, before his face hardened. What began as a dispute over procedure became a painful accusation between father and son. Either Charles had been deceived by those closest to him, or he had knowingly allowed the rules to be pushed aside for Camilla. William placed 3 documents side by side. The first was the original council agenda. The second was Anne's written objection. The third was the final appointment paper, stripped of both the vote and the warning. The council existed to stop personal loyalty from deciding permanent control over shared royal property. Without that safeguard, Balmoral would answer only to the king's private preference. Charles rose from his chair. He accused his son of treating him like an incapable old man surrounded by manipulators. The monarch's anger carried something deeper than pride. William was not merely questioning one decision. He was challenging whether his father still understood the machinery moving around him. William did not retreat. The prince told him that protection was not humiliation. Allowing a compromised appointment to become permanent would be. His voice remained controlled, but every word landed harder than shouting. Camilla entered after hearing the raised voices. Charles told her that Anne's warning had been removed from the packet. The queen consort turned pale, then looked at William as though he had arranged the entire confrontation to destroy her standing. William answered before she could accuse him. He had not written the objection. He had not removed it. He had not opened the archive. The future king had only refused to pretend that none of it had happened. Charles finally admitted that he knew the council vote had been postponed. The king insisted that he had been told the appointment could go ahead first and receive confirmation later. William then delivered the fact that changed the room. Once signed, the trusteeship would have become permanent. Any later vote would have been ceremonial, unable to reverse what had already been done. Camilla demanded the name of the person who had given that advice. Charles named his senior household advisor, the official responsible for coordinating private palace decisions. She recognized him immediately. He was the same man who had pressured the Balmoral custodian to open the archive. Her anger shifted. Someone had taken her ambition, Charles's trust, and William's suspicion, and turned them into a weapon capable of dividing the family. Charles reached for the appointment folder. He did not destroy it. Instead, the monarch ordered an emergency council session. William warned him that a formal vote would force every senior royal to choose publicly. Camilla understood the danger at once. The meeting could legitimize her position forever, or reveal how little support she truly had. The confrontation ended without reconciliation, and the decision passed into a council where blood, memory, and authority would carry very different weights. The emergency council was not designed to judge Camilla's worth as a wife or queen consort. It was convened to answer a colder question. Could the monarch grant permanent control over Balmoral when the required safeguards had been deliberately removed? Around the table sat people bound by family loyalty but divided by memory. Charles held the crown. William held the future. Anne held the missing evidence. And Camilla entered knowing that each lowered gaze might already represent a vote against her. Charles took the central chair while William sat across from him. Anne carried the original objection, and Edward attended, as the family member expected to remain neutral. The Royal Family Council was the private body used to review decisions affecting shared royal interests. Camilla could answer every accusation placed before her, but she could not vote on her own appointment. The council secretary stated the rule plainly. Charles could nominate a Balmoral trustee, but permanent confirmation required majority approval when the nominee belonged to his immediate household. The safeguard protected future sovereigns from being trapped by an irreversible private decision made during one reign. Camilla noticed her name card opposite William rather than beside the king. She lifted it without speaking and moved it closer to Charles. Anne watched the gesture but offered no comment. The small movement exposed the battle beneath the meeting. The queen consort wanted the room to remember that she stood beside her husband, not before his son as an accused outsider. Charles opened the session by defending her devotion. The monarch spoke of years of hostility, private sacrifice, and support offered when the burden of kingship became unbearable. His voice faltered as he admitted that he feared Camilla would lose protection the moment William inherited the crown. William felt sadness beneath the pressure. The prince understood his father's fear, but he could not allow fear to become permanent authority over Balmoral. Anne unfolded her documented objection and read it aloud. The Princess Royal stated that the archive incident did not prove malice. It proved something more dangerous: confusion between Charles's personal wishes and the estate's formal protections. She then read a final paragraph that had never appeared in the revised packet, warning that Camilla's appointment should remain suspended until the breach was examined. Edward finally spoke. He confirmed through a recorded account submitted to the council that the senior advisor had called him before he received the papers and urged him to support the nomination. The same man had altered the packet and pressured the archive custodian. Charles ordered the advisor suspended immediately. The decision proved that the process had been compromised, even if Camilla had not directed it. The council delayed the vote for 24 hours and froze every Balmoral appointment. Camilla left without looking at William. Charles remained beside her empty chair, while his son realized that stopping the signature may have protected the monarchy but fractured his father's marriage. By nightfall, the legal danger had been contained. but the emotional damage spread faster than any official decision could control. The palace expected the postponed vote to create a pause. Instead, it created a vacuum in which every silence became an accusation. Camilla returned to her rooms, removed the council papers from her case, and placed them unopened inside a drawer. Charles followed minutes later, hoping to explain why he had suspended the advisor and accepted the freeze. But the woman who had defended his reign in public now believed he had allowed his family to put her loyalty on trial. Balmoral staff received written instructions before the evening ended. Every proposed change to the archives, guest access, room assignments, and private displays was suspended. The estate returned temporarily to the rules established before Charles's reign, because no further decision could be trusted until the altered process had been examined. The appointment packet was transferred to the Keeper of Royal Records, the official responsible for preserving and reviewing sensitive royal documents. The household advisor lost access to council correspondence at once. That removal proved the crisis had moved beyond wounded feelings. Someone had interfered with a decision carrying permanent consequences. Camilla faced Charles and told him she would withdraw from the vote. The Queen Consort refused to sit before his children while they debated whether she could be trusted. The king asked her not to decide in anger. She looked at him with exhausted calm and said anger was not what he was seeing. It was the weight of years spent proving herself, only to be placed on trial again. Charles reached for her hand. She stepped away and closed the drawer containing the papers. The movement devastated him. He had intended the trusteeship to give her security, yet his attempt had left her more exposed than ever. William received a handwritten note before midnight. Camilla had written one sentence: "You stopped the appointment, but you have not yet proved I sought it unlawfully." The prince read it twice. He had resisted her authority, but resistance was not proof of conspiracy. The records review delivered the answer the next morning. Camilla had never requested that the council vote be removed. The advisor had rewritten the process after hearing Charles express frustration over repeated delays. Her ambition was real. The breach was not her command. William felt the victory change shape. He could let the Queen Consort carry blame for a scheme she had not designed, preserving his own position. Or he could admit that a necessary intervention had wounded an innocent part of her. The evidence cleared Camilla of engineering the deception, forcing William toward a private meeting where procedure could no longer protect either of them from the truth. William did not summon a secretary, request minutes, or bring Anne's letter. He asked Camilla to meet him alone in the small morning room, where no council table could divide them, and no royal title could soften what needed to be said. She arrived expecting another warning. Instead, the prince admitted that the altered appointment had not been her design, yet he refused to apologize for stopping it. Their conversation became something rarer than agreement, an honest recognition of the fear driving them both. William began with the records review. The formal examination of the appointment papers had found no instruction from Camilla to remove the vote or suppress Anne's concern. The advisor had taken Charles's frustration over delays and treated it as permission to bypass the council. The prince told her plainly that the process had been corrupted, but not by her command. Camilla did not deny wanting the role. She admitted that she had prepared proposals for Balmoral and hoped to shape decisions involving access, private rooms, and the estate's collections. The Queen Consort insisted that she expected Charles to secure the trusteeship lawfully. She had never believed the family's approval would be erased to make the appointment easier. William then spoke about Diana. He told Camilla that Balmoral held memories he could not separate from questions of control. The prince remembered childhood summers, his mother's grief, and the painful days that followed her death. For him, the estate was not simply land. It was part of a wound the monarchy had never fully healed. Camilla listened without interrupting. When he finished, she answered with equal honesty. She had spent years entering rooms where Diana's absence was treated as evidence against her presence. The Queen Consort knew she could never replace William's mother, but she was tired of being judged as though simply standing beside Charles was an act of theft. Camilla admitted the trusteeship represented protection. She feared being removed, reduced, or quietly pushed aside when Charles's reign ended. William understood the fear, but he refused the solution. Permanent authority, he said, could not be used to cure emotional insecurity. He promised she would be treated with dignity, but not given unchecked power to guarantee it. Camilla surprised him. She offered to withdraw before the vote. provided the official record made clear that she had not manipulated the process. Reputation mattered more than authority now. William proposed a Balmoral stewardship panel, a temporary group requiring unanimous approval for archive access and historic changes. Camilla could advise, while Anne and the heir retained oversight. Before leaving, she asked whether Charles would see the withdrawal as rejection. William said he would speak to his father himself. With Camilla prepared to step back, the prince now had to explain why losing the appointment might be the only way for the king to preserve both his marriage and his legacy. By sunrise, the private confrontation had become a national story. The details were incomplete, but the central image was irresistible. The heir had physically stopped the king's pen before Camilla could be granted permanent authority over Balmoral. Outside Buckingham Palace, visitors gathered beneath a line of newspaper boards, while broadcasters debated whether William had defended royal tradition or openly challenged his father. Inside, Charles watched the same headline appear again and again, and understood that silence was no longer possible. The palace released a statement confirming that the Balmoral trusteeship nomination had been paused pending council review. A trusteeship was a permanent role, carrying influence over the estate's archives, private rooms, access, and future decisions. The announcement avoided mentioning the altered papers, but its reference to established collective safeguards made one truth impossible to hide. William's intervention had prevailed. Royal correspondents quickly turned the dispute into something larger than property. They described it as a test of how authority would pass from Charles's reign to William's future monarchy. The real question was no longer who controlled Balmoral. It was whether personal loyalty could ever justify weakening the rules designed to restrain royal power. Charles watched the morning broadcast alone. One presenter called the crisis the moment the future king refused to inherit a decision made without consent. The king switched off the television. The words wounded him because they suggested his son had become the guardian of standards he had failed to protect. Camilla faced a harsher judgment. Another segment portrayed her as the architect of the appointment and the silent force behind the missing vote. The queen consort offered no public response. She carried her signed withdrawal letter to Charles instead, and told him that forcing the council to defend her would deepen the damage. Outside Buckingham Palace, a newspaper board carried the headline, "William stops the Balmoral signature." Beneath it, a smaller line declared, "Council vote restored after royal intervention." Visitors crowded around the page. One elderly woman placed flowers beside the railing, saying Balmoral should remain protected for the generations still to come. The crisis then produced its first permanent consequence. The palace confirmed that the suspended advisor had resigned. It also announced that every lasting family appointment involving a heritage estate would require a recorded council vote. William's refusal had become more than a private victory. It had created a reform no future monarch could quietly ignore. Charles read Camilla's withdrawal letter once more, then summoned the council for a final meeting. The king would not revive her nomination. He would present a replacement arrangement. As the country waited for a winner and a loser, Charles entered that room carrying a proposal that would redefine what loyalty meant inside the monarchy. The final council meeting lasted less than an hour, but its verdict settled a conflict that had been building for months. Charles entered with Camilla's withdrawal letter in one hand and the revised Balmoral charter in the other. William expected resistance. Anne expected justification. Camilla expected only the quiet embarrassment of surrender. Instead, the king acknowledged that the appointment had crossed a line not because his wife lacked devotion, but because devotion could never replace consent, scrutiny, or trust. Charles formally withdrew the nomination. The monarch declared that no permanent appointment connected to a shared royal heritage site could ever be confirmed without a recorded council vote, and the full circulation of every written objection. The revised Balmoral Charter, a binding document setting out how the estate would be protected and governed, turned that promise into a rule future sovereigns could not quietly ignore. The council approved the temporary stewardship panel without opposition. Anne became the senior guardian of Balmoral's historical protections, while William received oversight of decisions affecting succession and the estate's future. Camilla would remain involved as a non-voting advisor on charitable work and public engagement. She could contribute, she could be heard, but she could no longer act without collective agreement. Charles then turned toward his son. The king admitted that fear for Camilla's future had influenced a decision requiring greater distance. He had wanted to protect the woman who stood beside him, but his private devotion had nearly become the monarchy's permanent obligation. William answered with restraint. The prince said stopping the signature had never been an attempt to weaken his father. He had acted because silence would have allowed affection to overpower accountability. Preparing to inherit the crown meant protecting the institution, even when doing so caused pain inside his own family. Camilla signed the withdrawal before the full council. Her hand trembled, but she did not hesitate. Anne watched her finish, then moved a chair beside the queen consort, rather than leaving her isolated. The gesture did not erase their conflict. It recognized that surrendering power could demand courage too. Charles then disclosed one final protection. No future sovereign could remove Camilla from her established Balmoral residence without council approval. The monarch had secured her dignity without granting her control. Love had survived, but the rules had survived with it. William signed the charter after his father. Their names appeared on the same page, transforming the document that almost divided them into a shared commitment to lawful succession. The verdict was complete. Camilla lost the trusteeship, but gained protection rooted in agreement rather than favor. Charles admitted error without surrendering authority. William proved that the future king would not preserve family peace by remaining silent. The appointment was withdrawn. The council's authority was restored. Balmoral remained protected by collective trust, and William showed that preparing to wear the crown sometimes means stopping the man who already does. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.